I'm going to go through about a dozen examples of products, goods, and services that have different prices. So that's about 100% higher price in the US for that. That is a difference of 330%. At $6.75 as an average, that is 477% higher in the US. It is a staggering 1,189% higher. YouTube, hey, what's going on? It's Kevin from my backyard here in beautiful Savannah, Georgia. I purposely waited until it was like late in the afternoon here to try to get a little sunset vibe, give you guys something pretty to look at. If you're lucky, maybe a squirrel or a couple birds will drop by in the background behind me while I'm talking. But anyway, this is going to be a fun video. I promised that I would do this one. My last video was about culture shock, or reverse culture shock, when you're coming back to the US, your home country, from when you visited the Philippines. And part of that culture shock I talked about was how things cost different here. Cost different, cost more, or cost less than they do in the Philippines. So that's the purpose of this video and what I want to get into. And that is cost comparisons between things in specifically around the Dumaguete area of Negros in the Philippines and Savannah, Georgia, where I'm home when I'm in the States. So a couple caveats before we start. Hopefully that helicopter's not going to bother you. Okay, helicopter's gone. A couple caveats I wanted to say before I get into this. One is at the making of this video, the price of the Philippine peso was 55 pesos and 24 centavos to the US dollar. And that's kind of sort of what it's going to be by the time this video posts on Friday. We're hanging around the 55 and change area, which is actually pretty good. I remember just a couple of years ago, I was in the Philippines and it was creeping towards almost 60 pesos per US dollar. And so it's kind of improved lately and it's doing a lot better. And for Filipinos, that's good. For their economy, that's good. Foreigners always complain, go, oh man, I don't get as much for my dollar. Yeah, but for Filipinos, it's better. So on their behalf, we kind of want their peso to strengthen, right? Anyway, so that's one caveat. The other caveat I'm going to say is I'm going to go through about a dozen examples of products, goods, and services that have different prices in the Philippines versus here in the States. And what everybody is going to say is that, oh, I know where I can get it for cheaper than that, or I know where it's better than that. This is just sort of like a very general look at some specific examples, and they're examples of things that I have found and shopped for. So don't worry if you feel like my price of eggs is not the same where you live. It's going to vary, and it's going to vary a lot in the United States because we all know that there's places where things cost more and things cost less. New York City is not the same as Lincoln, Nebraska, or whatever. So California is not the same as Memphis, Tennessee. I mean, it's going to be different everywhere across the country based on a bunch of different factors. So I'm going to I wrote down some prices for things that I saw in the Philippines, and then I came back to the States and saw them here, and I thought this would be a great video. So here's the fun part. The thing that got me started with this whole idea was, and these are random things, guys. It's not like I'm methodical. I'm like, here's the top 10 things that everybody always wants to know the price of. They're random, guys. And the very first thing that sparked this was a box of sushi. Fresh, hand-rolled, delicious sushi made that day in the supermarket in Dumaguete. And I was shopping with Angie, my girlfriend. We do like weekly grocery run, and I passed this handmade sushi and hand-rolled sushi, fresh. I said, man, that looks so good. Like, how much is that for a big box of sushi? And I'll show you the picture of the sushi right now while I'm talking. And this box of sushi was 145 pesos. So I was blown away. I said, that's about $2.62 for a nice big box of fresh sushi. And my mind immediately went to back to Savannah, Georgia, to my Publix grocery store, which is a few minutes drive away from my house. And I remember that the price in there was, even for the very smallest box of similar sushi, again, handmade, fresh that day, was about $8. And really the most equivalent box that I could find was $11.50. So guess what? That is a difference of 330%. So that comparable box of sushi is 330% more expensive in the US than it is in the Philippines. I was like, man. So anyway, that's an interesting one and a random one, but it's what started this whole journey of discovery for me, because I was like, let's look at some other ones just for fun. And again, if you're watching this video now, this is June of 2025. These are the prices. This is the exchange rates. If you're watching this a year from now, it could be completely different. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening as well in the economy, in both economies, America and in the Philippines. And there's like talks of tariffs and then no tariffs, and anything could happen. So this video could become a little bit more relevant as time goes on. But for right now, this is the prices, and it's in a good example. Okay, next one. I was in a McDonald's in Dumaguete, and there's thankfully McDonald's and Jollibee and a bunch of other nice little fast food restaurants that every once in a while, when you get a kind of a craving for, they're there. And I don't go to McDonald's often, because when I'm in the Philippines, I like being more Filipino. Like my favorite place to get coffee is a Filipino-owned chain like Bo's Coffee or what is the other one? Tom and Tom's or whatever. I don't go to Starbucks because that's the American one. I could get that one anytime I want in the States. Let's go for a Filipino one. But anyway, I was at McDonald's and I ordered a sausage McMuffin with egg, which I think is a yummy breakfast sandwich. And the price of the sausage McMuffin with egg in the Philippines, I have a picture of it, was 105 pesos, or $1.90. So just under $2. What was the price of that sausage McMuffin when I got back to Savannah, Georgia, and went to the McDonald's a mile or two away from my house? $3.89. Same sandwich, almost the same size. It looked the same. It tasted the same. So that's about 100% higher price in the U.S. for that same sausage McMuffin. And it's McDonald's. It's standardized product, very well standardized across multiple restaurants and markets, and so it's interesting that the price of that McMuffin is 100% more. All right, here's a silly one I want to get out of the way, and that is, okay, Kevin, you're just handpicking random things and it doesn't make sense. Well, I'm trying to be fair too. Like, for example, I'm not going to bring up the price differences of coconut water or buko juice, like we like to call it, because here's another sound of freedom overhead. Coming to the air base. Don't mind the helicopter. I'll talk over it. In the Philippines, we have access to fresh coconut water because it's growing everywhere. In fact, if you're not careful, a coconut will fall on your tree and crack your head open. So I'm not going to compare the price of something like that because I know that it's not fair. But I will pick some other ones that I feel like might be fair enough to compare. And again, these are products, goods, and services. There's a place that sells fresh coconut water near our place in Dumaguete, and Angie and I love to stop and get bags of coconut water. And here in the States, I got to buy it in a carton if I want it, so I don't buy it as often because it's more expensive. But anyway, what about the price of a beer? All right, a nice ice cold beer. You're sitting at a restaurant in Dumaguete, and this is going to vary depending on the restaurant or the resort or where you're at, but I'm going with the price of 65 pesos for example, a San Miguel or a San Miguel Light. I've seen them for 55, I've seen it for 75, 85. It all depends on where you are and price you're paying. Let's just say it's about 65 pesos. That's about $1.17 for that ice cold beer. And again, not to create controversy or whatever, but I took the average price of a beer in the US right now, which is about $6.75. And if you're saying, I can get a beer for cheaper than that, or I can go to the grocery store and buy a 12-pack and it brings the price down. I'm saying, if you go to a restaurant and you sit down and you order a cold beer, what is that going to cost you? I think it's going to be more than $5 or $6. It's probably going to be closer to $7 or $8, depending on what kind of beer it is. So anyway, at $6.75 as an average, that is 477% higher in the U.S. for that same bottle of ice cold beer. So wow, what a difference, right? All right, let's do another one. I'm calling this one low-hanging fruit, but what about a men's haircut? I recently got a little haircut, a couple days ago, a week ago, and I have to confess that I hate paying in the States for haircuts because I know how cheap they are in the Philippines. And right now, the going rate, I think it's come up a little bit. It used to be infamously, it was 50 pesos for a haircut, all right, in the provincial areas. And then I saw it at 55. Now they're kind of raising their prices again. They're doing 60. Well, I do something that's a little bougie, and that is I go to a mall in Dumaguete, and I get my hair cut for about 250 pesos. In fact, sometimes I give them a tip, so I pay more than 250 pesos. But anyway, that 250 pesos ends up being about $4. Excuse me, there's some bugs flying around. Savannah, they come out in the early evening hours. Where was I? That 250 peso haircut comes out to $4.52. What did I pay for my haircut last week when I walked into Jimmy's Barber Shop, my local guy not too far from my house here, and he's a sweet guy, Navy veteran. I love him to death. You're not walking out of there for less than 25 bucks. I think he said he charged 23, and I always give him 25. I give him a couple extra bucks because I'm cheap. So $25 instead of $4.52. That is a difference of 453%. So for a men's haircut, we are making out like bandits, especially if you're able to get the one that's only the 55 or 60 peso one. You know, if you find a guy who really cuts hair well and does it for 60 pesos, even if you gave him 100, you're making out like a bandit. So that one was a kind of a shock. I mean, I knew it was going to be more expensive here, but I just had to actually do the math and find out what it was. And when I did it, I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. All right, I mentioned eggs earlier in the video, and this one's, again, you'll be able to find the prices of eggs depending on what they are. Are they free range? Are they, what is it, cage-free, you know, brown eggs? But I just went for, I think I got some cage-free, size large brown farm eggs. And in the Philippines, there's a lot of really good fresh cage-free type of eggs, and we were paying about 156 pesos for a dozen of these large or extra large eggs. I think it was like 13 pesos per egg. So 156 pesos, which converted to about $2.82. And here in the US, I went to my local grocery store and I found what I thought was an equivalent dozen eggs that looked and felt the same as those eggs in the Philippines. I paid $5.52 for those eggs, or about 96% higher here in the US for those same fresh farm eggs. So man, if you're following with me, you can see that there's ways where you can really, really save, especially over time. The longer you stay in the Philippines, and you're taking your home country's currency and making it go way further. But wait, hold on to the end of this video, because I'm going to share a couple ones that go the opposite direction, and I'll share some things that are actually more expensive in the Philippines. So don't worry, it's not completely one-sided. I'm trying to keep it balanced. All right, the next one. Now this one is more in the services category, but how much does a 1 hour massage cost? You guys already know what the answer to this one is, probably. It's going to be astronomically different. I found a place in Dumaguete that was offering a 1 hour long massage. I think it was like their signature massage, which probably has a combination of different techniques and stuff, for 450 pesos, or $8.14. You guys, if you came to the US, anywhere, any city, and asked for an hour-long massage from a reputable spa or whatever, there is no way you were going to pay $8.14. I looked up one here in Savannah. There were several different good places, and an hour-long massage, I think it was like a basic Swedish one, was the price that I saw that seemed to be sort of what you would call normal was $105. Guys, labor is so much more expensive here in the States. They pay people more. Sorry, the bugs. So what percentage is that? This was the biggest one, guys. It is a staggering 1,189% higher to have a 1 hour massage in the United States than it is in the Philippines. And if you're someone who has a massage as part of your health routine, or maybe you're trying to be healthy, you walk, you go to the gym, you eat healthy, and you get a massage once a week or something, I couldn't afford to do that here in the States. I couldn't work that in unless I was just really, really doing well financially and didn't care about burning money. And I'm not trying to shame anybody who is spending that kind of money and doing that. More power to you if you can afford it, but I'd much rather do that in the Philippines than I would here in the States, right? Okay, we're at the middle of the video. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you find this interesting. I got a couple more I want to share with you, and let's keep going. All right, this is again a random one, but I was thinking about it. I was like, you know, I like a pizza occasionally. I like to sit down at a restaurant with Angie, and she might order her meal, and I might say, you know, let me get just like a medium pizza, like a Hawaiian pizza, let's say, for example. Controversial pizza. Some people don't like pineapple on their pizza. But anyway, we'll go with it for now for this example. Oh, more freedom sounds. Another helicopter. All right, Hawaiian pizza. Interrupted by the helicopter. When I'm in the Philippines, there's a restaurant that is near our place where we stay. And I pay about 285 pesos for a medium-sized Hawaiian pizza. That comes out to about $5.15 in the States. Now, with a coupon that I was able to find to help me save, if I were to order a medium-sized, similar-size Hawaiian pizza at nearby Domino's, it's about $15, and that's probably before tax and stuff like that. So, guys, that's 191% higher for that same or similar pizza than it is in the Philippines. And again, there's different kinds of pizzas, the different sizes, yada yada. I just picked a couple random examples. And that was another one. Let's do the next one. Here's one that's a staple for all Filipinos, going back to the food category, and that is a kilo of Jasmin rice. I had this at the grocery store, and I had to look up what the average price of a kilo of rice was in the Philippines because I wasn't 100% sure. We buy our rice like in big bags. I think smallest is like 5 kilos at a time. So you get a better price when you buy like, you know, a big bag of rice. But according to the interwebs, the internet, the price of 1 kilo of Jasmin rice is about 50 pesos or 90 cents. Wait, is this right? Yeah. And then it's about $3 per kilo in the U.S. I had to do some chat GPT math to help me convert this stuff because, you know, things are in ounces and stuff like that. But basically, I took a kilo of Jasmin rice on my grocery store shelf and looked at it, or a bag, and converted the kilo price. Anyway, it ends up being 267% higher in the United States for that Jasmin rice. Now, it's just interesting because even in the Philippines, rice is often imported from other countries like Thailand and stuff because they can't make enough of it to feed everybody from the Philippines alone. So it's already probably an expensive price, but it's a staple that everybody has. Almost every Filipino eats at every meal. So anyway, that's interesting. Way more expensive at my grocery store. Is there a product or service that breaks even? Before I give some examples of ones that are more expensive in the Philippines. You know, I was surprised by one that I was looking into because I thought, you know, what does this cost here in the Philippines and what does it cost in the U.S.? And it's kind of sort of an import item, so, you know, it's probably not the best example, but I found in a pharmacy a deodorant brand that I liked. And this bottle of deodorant, actually in the Philippines they don't sell deodorant, they sell antiperspirant. I don't use antiperspirant because I like to sweat. I like to keep my pores open. But anyway, they sell this antiperspirant brand, and I noticed that it was kind of expensive on the shelf, but it's the same one that I typically buy here when I'm in the US, and that was a 400 peso item, or about $7.24. And at my local grocery store in the pharmacy aisle where you can buy that same bottle of deodorant, lo and behold, it was $7.99, which is actually only around 10% higher. So really, it was almost the same. And again, that's probably not a fair comparison because if you wanted to argue that things were cheaper in the Philippines and use deodorant or antiperspirant as an example, you can point to Filipino brands that are made there that are probably cheaper. I just happened to see this on the shelf and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what it is, the cost difference between those two. So almost the same. Okay, what about some things that are more expensive in the Philippines? You know, I've been talking mostly this whole time about things that are cheaper in the Philippines. Oh, what a great deal. Your dollar goes further. What an awesome opportunity to live as an expat and retire there and save money. Well, guess what? There is a couple things, probably more than a couple things if I really did more homework, that are more expensive in the Philippines. And an easy one to point to is the cost of energy, specifically your electric bill. So what I found interesting was that In the Philippines, our electric bill, and this depends on a lot of things. This depends on the time of year, how hot it is, how much we run our air cons, and things that require a lot of power. But we're probably, if I were to guess an average, around 5,000 pesos per month, or about $90 a month. And so that's interesting that here in the US, this was my bill for April. I think I just got the one for May. It was $42. So that means it was almost 100% higher in the Philippines for power. And I run my air conditioner here in Savannah 24 hours a day and never shuts off. So now anybody who's ever lived in the United States, especially in the Southeast during the summer, knows that your electric bill can skyrocket during the summer because you're trying to cool your house down. And you know, one of my friends told me his bill was over $300 one month for his house. I don't know what he's doing over there. Why he's got a pool and all kinds of stuff. So so he's got a lot more things sucking up electricity. But I do think it's fair to say that electricity is more expensive in the Philippines because it costs more money for them to make it. And I was thinking about making a whole video all about electricity. When I did a video about brownouts, I didn't really even touch on infrastructure and how a lot of the infrastructure in the Philippines, the electric plants are aging, and they need upgrades, they need repairs, and they need investment in creating new power plants. And apparently it's really, really difficult to do all those things. So a lot of these old power plants are just limping along, they're keeping them going, and that's why we have brownouts and blackouts, specifically in the more provincial areas in places like Negros. So anyway, power, more expensive in the Philippines. Next one, this is a little bit of a delicacy, you might say, or a food item that not everybody has to have, but sometimes if you're, again, a little bit more bougie and you're a foreigner and you miss the taste of a good steak, I put that on the list because it's really hard to find a good cut of you know, higher quality steak, beef. You know, I like to go to the grocery store here and get some top sirloin, or if I'm feeling very, like I said, bougie, I'll get something else. You know, I don't always go for the filet mignon, but just a nice cut of some kind of good meat that you can season well and cook up, and it's going to taste wonderful. With a side of mashed potatoes and some veggies and a nice glass of wine. Refocusing, I recently bought 350 grams of U.S. top sirloin for about $10 here in the States at my grocery store. That came out to about 552 pesos. Well, I'm very confident, because I've been to places like Belcris and these import stores in Dumaguete, that I'm very confident that I would not be able to find a similar amount of steak for that price in the Philippines. You know, almost like there was two cuts of meat inside that 350 grams, and they're about even. So, you know, each one of those probably would have been 500, 600, 700 pesos at Belcris or at the import store, not that price for two. So I didn't do the actual percentage calculating on that, but I'm going to say 875 pesos to maybe 1,400 on the high end for that same amount of steak. So extremely, extremely more expensive for something like that, because it's hard to get good steak in the Philippines. You know, I guess they just don't have the cows, or they don't have the right grass, or I don't know. Somebody explain, leave a comment below why you don't always see good steak in the Philippines, especially in the provincial areas where I am. Okay, last one. This is getting long, but hopefully you're having fun. And if you've stuck with me to the end here, you guys are awesome. Give this video a like. Okay, I decided that gasoline, fuel, petrol, as our friends from Australia and England would say, what is the price of gasoline, petrol, in the U.S. versus in the Philippines? And this is tricky because in the U.S. we use gallons for our measurement of fuel, of gasoline, and of course in the Philippines they use liters. So I had to use some fancy math again to calculate this, but the last time I looked at my gas station over here when I was going to fill up for my truck, the price was about $3.15. And using a kilo to gallon conversion, again, ChatGPT helped me with this, thank you. I ended up with a price of about $4.20 per gallon, which is about 33% higher than the cost of fuel in the Philippines. So don't ask me to explain all that math, but basically I figured out what the price of the liter would be, and the gallons and liters and all that stuff. So for that same amount of fuel, whether you're filling up in the Philippines or you're filling up here in Savannah, Georgia, it's about 33% higher for fuel in the Philippines. Again, because they're probably not manufacturing enough to meet the demand, or it just costs so much more to make that fuel there. So here in the US, we've got more systems in place to provide fuel. And again, it goes up and down all the time, regionally different. California, New York, Midwest, the price of gas. I went with an average price actually. Around here, it is around $3 a gallon, plus or minus. But anyway, we end up with a higher gasoline price, and that is something to take into effect. Now, one way to get around that, though, is that when I'm in Dumaguete, I'm not driving an F-150 around, which doesn't get as good as a fuel economy. I'm driving around a little scooter, which sips fuel in tiny amounts. So it is interesting that even though the price of fuel is more expensive, I think overall, from an economic standpoint, I'm still saving money by not driving a truck over there, and by driving a scooter, because it just consumes so much less fuel than a big American vehicle. So, all right, wow, that was a lot. If you watched this whole video, thank you for sticking with me. I had fun going through some of these price comparisons. Do me a favor, leave me a comment below if I left out something that is near and dear to you. Maybe you're thinking, oh, why didn't he talk about this obvious comparison? And if you know one that is more expensive in the Philippines, I'm interested in hearing those as well, because I kind of focus more on things that were cheaper, because I'm biased, right? I like being in the Philippines. I like saving money, and I like it when my US dollar goes further there. So that's why I kind of leaned heavily in that direction. But guys, don't forget that over 1,000% price change for a massage. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. Anyway, leave a comment below if you can think of another example of one that would be a good cost comparison. And thank you for watching this video. Press the like button if you liked it, and I will see you again soon on another video. From beautiful Savannah, Georgia, I'll say bye and mabuhay. Bye, guys.